And Ballerina Misty Copeland, principal dancer at the American Ballet Theatre, making history as the first black ballerina to achieve the title in 2015. And her success on the stage has led to all kinds of activity off stage around the world, an activist for diversity in dance, and working through her foundation as ambassador of the Boys and Girls Club. She's the author of several books, including the best-selling memoir, Life in Motion, and The Wind at My Back, about her relationship with the ballet trailblazer Raven Wilkinson. Copeland is also featured in the documentary Black Barbie on Netflix now. Here on the Summit Series is Misty Copeland. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You started ballet at around age 13.
Yes.
That sounds young to plenty of people, but maybe isn't for ballet. Explain.
Right. I would say, similarly to gymnastics or even any sport, it's something that you start young. You really start to become a part of the culture and understand how to navigate through that space. But with ballet in particular, it's important to be able to shape the body as you're training it and get it so that the technique is really ingrained, so that you then, by the time you're a teenager, you start to think about what it is to be an artist. Because this isn't just about athletics, it's also about artistry and telling a story through movement. So for me to start at 13, that's considered like ancient in ballet.
So was that coming from teachers or peers saying that's, quote, late?
The culture, the community, the ballet, industry, that's very late to start. By the time you're 13, you're already starting to look at either professional schools that you want to attend, or you're already starting to look at what companies you want to be a part of. So I started at 13 on a basketball court at my Boys and Girls Club, where I was discovered by a local teacher who was looking to bring more diverse students into her studio on scholarship. So I happened to be one of those students that she immediately said was a prodigy. I ended up living with her and her family for 3.5 years. And then I became a professional with only 4 years of training here in New York with the American Ballet Theatre.
Did you immediately accept or internalize that? They say you're a prodigy, you're obviously good at it, we'll get to how good, and you're like, yep, I'm a prodigy, or was that an evolution?
I don't think I've ever really embraced or accepted that. I don't think I even understood the magnitude of what that meant at that age. For me, coming from the background that I come from, I'm from a single-parent home. My mother raised me and my 5 siblings, pretty much on our own. We were often houseless for most of my upbringing. And so entering into this space where I felt safe, I felt like I had a voice, I felt seen and heard. That word prodigy meant nothing to me. I just knew that I couldn't live my life without ballet in it from that point on, once I was introduced to it. So I think it served a very different purpose for me initially. It wasn't just about becoming a professional. It was something that I needed. It was a tool to become the person that I am now. I started to excel in school because not every child, not every person learns the same. And that's why the arts, I think, are so important.
It's interesting because that's partly art, it's partly sport, but the art is a type of fiction, right? Yeah. Fiction, fantasy, some of these are productions with entire characters, of course. Practice maybe is a little different, but that in that fiction, you found, you're saying, a kind of discipline and solace, which then also played back into your real life.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of just instability. We were always moving. I would go from one day to the next. I wouldn't know where we would be staying or if there was food on the table, and there was abuse in the house. And so this was literally this one place that was sacred to me. To be able to dive into these characters, taking experiences that I had in my life, but becoming something beautiful, becoming something powerful and strong and in control. It became a necessity for me. So
in your first competition, I think you were about 15. We have a clip. Let's take a look. How do you remember feeling that?
It was such an incredible experience. I think that being on a stage is where I feel most alive and at home. And again, I keep using this word safe, but there's such a safety in being on the stage and being in a studio for me. And so in that moment, I remember just feeling like this could be what my future is. was, you know, being on a stage, being surrounded by other dancers I was competing against that were at a high level was the first time for me, and the people who were the judges in the audience. It was the first time I was seen by American Ballet Theatre when they really started to look at me, and then I was invited to come and train with them.
We checked, this was how you were described in one of the first reviews in New York Times. One of the highlights, they said, of these 13 numbers in the dream sequence of Don Quixote, danced with impressive authority and technical skill by Misty Copeland, whose expansiveness communicated the joy of confident young performing. With those layers, then you're getting some sort of validation, as you said, within the actual ballet community. Then you're getting to a point where you're being reviewed, you're in that spotlight. How did that then connect with, validate, or interact with also being this barrier breaker within this very white space?
I've never been someone that's really looked at reviews or kind of depended on them for anything, really. Coming into this space, you know, I come from an environment where I was really nurtured, and the teacher, Cynthia Bradley, who found me at that Boys and Girls Club, really understood what it meant to train a dancer of color. And so I feel like I was very protected in that environment where she just wanted me to focus on ballet and on the craft. And, you know, a lot of things were being kept from me that were happening in terms of, you know, my race. And so once I came to New York City and joined ABT, it was a little bit of a shock. Though I was the only one in most rooms I'd been in, I just, you know, the environment was set up in such a nurturing and loving way that it wasn't something I was even really aware of.
And you were a kid.
And I was a kid, but, you know, even being a kid, you know, this is why I've started programs that I've started, is because often dancers of color in studios, you know, from ages 3 to 12 experience extreme racism and are, you know, told to go into different genres of dance because they may be more successful, or, you know, they might have, that's where their body types will be more accepted. But all of it to say, when I moved to New York City, it was a big shock and a big adjustment. And you know, these reviews I often just never really took to heart. It was really about me finding a community that I was going to have support from, you know, similarly to what I experienced with Cynthia Bradley. And that's really been at the backbone of my success. It's been finding other dancers who have experienced similar things, and there's, you know, it's a small dance community, and really bonding with them, being a support system for them as well, but then just having incredible women, but especially Black women in my life that have been there for me on those times where, you know, you just feel so alone, or, you know, you're being told, you know, within the system internally at my company that you don't belong here. You know, whether